Stone Cold, the Hellraiser is back!
Here we go! Evolution of the Shield!
John Cena versus the Showstopper!
Hulk Hogan and The Rock in the same ring!
You will never take my place at the head of the table!
Undertaker! On the Hell's Gate submission! Oh my God! What?
My God, Michaels! Just kick Cena's head off!
The Monday Night Wars have come to WrestleMania!
It'll be The Rock! It'll be Austin one-on-one!
Third and five to the Undertaker!
Do you believe in miracles?
The streak is over!
Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to WWE Retro on the WWE podcast on this Friday, January 14th, as yes, I know I'm a day late, as that's kind of the pain of doing night shift, is that it kind of screws up your entire day, and then I had some technical issues yesterday, so all in all, wasn't able to get it to you yesterday on my typical day of Friday, but we are here tonight to talk retro, and tonight, we're going to go back and cover a WrestleMania, actually. And a WrestleMania that I think most of us consider as the greatest WrestleMania of all time. But I don't think we've ever actually covered right down to the nitty-gritty. And that is WrestleMania 17. And WrestleMania 17 is a WrestleMania that, like I just said, is considered to be the greatest of all time. The greatest main event of all time. In the Houston Astrodome in Houston, Texas, and you go back and watch it, and it's actually crazy to say that, my God, this was actually a live produced event at a certain point in time. The amount of talent and star power WWE had on its roster, or WWF at that time, it was absolutely insane to think about. And you know, there were so many sub-storylines going on in WWF as you went into this match, or into this pay-per-view, I should say, as you have the McMahon versus Man angle, which I was thinking about covering just in and of itself, Shane versus Vince, but I'm pretty sure I covered that bit back when I did Rivalries. You had, obviously, Rock versus Austin for the second time. You had the first ever collision between Triple H and The Undertaker at a WrestleMania. They would ultimately have a 3-pack of matches in total. So you start with Sunday Night Heat, as we always did back in the day, and you had the X Factor tag team of X-Pac and Justin Credible defeat Steve Blackman and Grandmaster Sexay in 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Then you get to the first match on the actual card, and that's Chris Jericho against William Regal for the Intercontinental Championship. And, you know, it's crazy to think about that Chris Jericho was opening WrestleMania at this point in time. And the very next year, at WrestleMania 18, he would be closing the show with Triple H for the Undisputed Championship. But what a way to open a card. And I always thought that opening a WrestleMania with a mid-card championship was the way to go. I really think that you open up a card with the U.S. title or the Intercontinental Championship, and it sets the tone off perfectly. And we've seen that several times, like WrestleMania 20 with John Cena winning his first ever United States Championship. WrestleMania 31 opening with the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, which is a match I really hope they would bring back for a ladder match at WrestleMania when they did that in back-to-back years at 31, 32. I thought that was just brilliant. And this is another example of opening up the match or the match card with the Intercontinental Championship. Obviously, at this point in the time, there was no U.S. title. And you open it up with one of the bigger up-and-coming guys in Chris Jericho and a ring general and amazing technician in William Regal. And Jericho would win, and he would win it in 7 minutes and 40 seconds to win the Intercontinental Championship. Then, Taz and the APA, Farouk and Bradshaw, would defeat the Right to Censor in 3 minutes and 56 seconds. And if you guys don't remember, the Right to Censor consisted of the Good Father, Val Venus, and Bull Buchanan, and Steven Richards, although Steven Richards was on the outside for this match. A very forgettable match, that is for sure. the Right to Censor were just kind of an annoying, especially if you knew their theme song, the most annoying theme song in the history of the WWF, WWE. And, I mean, it did what it had to do. A fun 6-man tag team match that didn't even go 4 minutes to get us through the second match of the night. And then, probably one of my favorite matches in the history of WWE. I remember watching this live with my dad and just laughing hysterically through this match. And that is Kane versus Raven versus Big Show in a triple threat match for the Hardcore Championship. You want comedy? Man, this is an absolutely hysterical match. And I mean, when you get golf carts and windows and garden hoses involved, it is just an absolutely perfect way to get you through a hardcore match. And what made it more hilarious is that you have Kane, the Big Show, two of the biggest monsters in the company, and then Raven, just a small little weasel who comes in here trying to defend his hardcore championship. And I gotta tell you, Raven took an absolute beating through the majority of this match.
Raven's got to be very resourceful here. And you're right, Paul. Raven can let these two guys just beat the hell out of each other.
Kenny has a sneak in the win because if Kane beats the Big Show or the Big Show beats Kane, the championship changes hands. It's a triple threat match.
Raven trying to choke Kane. I don't know if that's going to work or not. As I said, I don't think it's going to work at all.
Hey, give Raven a lot of credit. He's willing to pay his dues. He's willing to pay the price to be the hardcore champion.
Now Raven being choked by Kane. Kane's got a garden hose.
So Raven being choked with a garden hose by Kane gets launched through a glass window. And oh my god, just watching this back, it's just like this poor guy Raven, as then he somehow tries to get back involved with Kane and the Big Show, who just launch each other through a gyprock wall. And then Raven tries to make a fast escape by grabbing a golf cart, which is which is quickly overtaken by the Big Show with Kane in hot pursuit. Oh my god, this is bringing back so many good memories. My god, you guys, if you have the network or you have this on DVD, go back and watch this match. Seriously, it is comedy gold. Oh my god. So Raven tries to get away. Big Show jumps on the back of the golf cart, derails it. It crashes into the side. Then they start making a fast escape by foot. Kane gets up, gets in the second golf cart. The referee jumps on the back and he runs over Raven. It is absolutely hilarious. So you just have these three buffoons just brawling in the back for the hardcore title, like the most insignificant championship in WWE. And it's just they brawl all the way until Gorilla, and then they make their way back onto the stage. So they're on the stage, and this is where everything would finally come to a head. So King gives the big boot to the Big Show, who has Raven raised above his head. They fall through I guess like a little box contraption type thing, which you could see had a mattress like underneath it all, so they didn't get seriously hurt. And Kane wins with a diving elbow or a leg drop, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure who he hit. I just feel like he landed both of them at the same time. And just a good quality, fun match, a good hardcore match. And it was what it was. I found it hilarious. It went at 9.5 minutes. I would thoroughly suggest any person to go back and watch this match. Then you have Eddie Guerrero with Perry Saturn defeat Test for the European Championship in 8.5 minutes. So you see at this point in time, like under an hour in, you have 3 singles championships already defended to this point. Then Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit in 14 minutes and 10 seconds. And this is a match that, from an in-ring perspective, obviously probably the best. 2 guys that probably could have been in the main event at this point in time. And going in, there was the whole thing that Kurt Angle had never tapped out before. And Kurt Angle had... It's so funny now that I'm looking at it. Like, if you go on the WWE Network and you click on this portion of the WrestleMania, it will just say Kurt Angle competes in a singles match. They won't say Chris Benoit's name. And, you know, this is a match that I think from an in-ring perspective, you can make the case was the match of the night. It was a match that clearly both men were very, I guess, overqualified for, given their amateur backgrounds. And it's just overall a match that could have had a world championship attached to it. 100% a world title attached to it. And it really came to a head and drove home the narrative that Kurt Angle had never tapped out before officially when the finish came and Benoit had him in the crippler crossface. But unfortunately, the referee's back was turned, and then it leads to Kurt Angle getting an underhanded victory to secure the win against Chris Benoit in a match that went just over 14 minutes. Then, in a singles match for the Women's Championship, Chyna defeats Ivory in 2 minutes and 38 seconds. It was pretty much a squash match for all intents and purposes, and it's just crazy to see how far we've come. And a good thing, right? Although it is sad to go back and look at how little time the women did get back then, it is good to see how far we've come and how much progress we made, that we can give them more than just one match of 2.5 minutes. But Chyna does pretty much squash Ivory for all intents and purposes. Then, in a street fight with the special guest referee Mick Foley, you have Shane McMahon go against Mr. McMahon. And obviously, this match had a lot of storylines built into it. You had Shane McMahon being revealed as the on-screen manager or owner of WCW. You have Shane McMahon obviously come back to announce his defense of his mom, who had been kind of put in a wheelchair and really just taken for granted by Vince McMahon, making out with Trish Stratus in front of him and all that, making her in kind of like a fugue state, hopped up on meds. Throughout this match, it was kind of like, it was kind of a spectacle, right? You had Trish and Stephanie McMahon brawl throughout it. You had Vince getting in Mick Foley's face, hit him over the head with the chair as he tried to get into Linda's face. And it was just a really good storytelling match as to the dysfunctionality of the McMahon family. And one of the most iconic parts of the match was Linda McMahon, as I said, kind of in like a trance, right? It's like kayfabe, obviously, hopped up on so many drugs that she can't even respond. And with Mick Foley down outside the ring, you have Vince put Linda in the ring on a chair in the corner and have her watch what he's doing to Shane. Just absolutely brutalize their only son with a steel trash can. And the biggest pop of the night, arguably, was when Linda finally had a response to Vince.
Watch this. This human being. Wait a minute. Linda, those are your kid.
rose from her chair. Right into the McMahon family jewels. Linda rose to the chair. And then Mick Foley, after being hit with a steel chair, opening up on Mr. McMahon.
But how can a referee beat the crap out of one of the opponents? This is unfair!
Don't tell Foley it's unfair. I didn't think so.
It's unfair!
No! The hardcore legend and former champion have been selling out for writing another chapter in the book. Linda was not heavily sedated here today. Mr. McMahon on the road to being duped like he was last week with his son of WCW from under him. Retribution. There is absolutely no way in hell Shane can do this. Oh my God! Shane with a drop kick. Shane drop kick the steel. The trash can right in the face of his father. The leg is hooked. And my God, it's over. Here is your winner, Shane McMahon. Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely amazing! And look at all the WCW stardom kissing Shane McMahon's ass! I don't like it! I don't like it one stinking bit!
Mr. McMahon, Trish, Shane, a plan unfolded. And Mr. McMahon has been duped for the second time in 6 days.
So one thing I'm sure you guys are kind of wondering about is why is Vince's music playing with a Shane victory? And if you guys remember, that was actually Shane's theme song as well, and it was only around this time that he got the Here Comes the Money song to coincide with his new standalone character. And this was also the first time that you would see the Coast to Coast. This is the first time that Shane used it as his own kind of standalone finishing move. So a lot of developments in the Shane McMahon character during this match. And just to go back on Vince here, it is just so crazy how many times Vince himself would go back to the well and book himself to get the holy hell beaten out of him by multiple people in a wrestling match. You have Linda stand up, kick him between the legs, Mick Foley gets involved, punches him out into the corner, and then his son Shane hits him with the coast to coast and hits him with the 1, 2, and 3. And just like that, you have Vince McMahon once again laying on his back, and it's so crazy to see how Vince has always thought that his own family was much watched television. And in a lot of ways it was. It really was in a lot of ways great TV. And obviously this match was one of the more significant ones on the card. It was the first time Shane or Vince were involved in a wrestling match at a WrestleMania. Actually, no, I don't believe that's true. It's true for Vince, but I'm pretty sure Shane had a match at WrestleMania 15 for the European Championship. And this match went just over 14 minutes. It is then followed by arguably the match of the night, where you have Edge and Christian versus the Dudley Boys versus the Hardy Boys for the WWF Tag Team Championships. It was billed as TLC 2 as the second time that these three teams were going to have a match like this. I guess technically that was the case, but at the same time, it was kind of the third time because a year prior at WrestleMania 16, it was billed as a triangle ladder match, which was pretty much the same thing. And then at SummerSlam 2000, they officially named it the TLC match. So I guess it was called TLC 2, but it pretty much was the third time that these guys had this type of match. And I mean, this was something that WWF kept going back to the well with because it worked so damn well. These three teams together will go down in history as the three best teams in terms of chemistry, in terms of star power, in terms of what they meant for the division at this point in time. And it will also go down as a match that had one of the best spots in the history of a ladder match and at WrestleMania. So, with the help of Rhino, as Paul Heyman so eloquently described during that match, and it's crazy, right? Because Paul Heyman and Jim Ross as the commentary duo for this pay-per-view, and they were just so great together. And I mean, you have Edge spear Jeff Hardy off of the belt, pretty much hanging from the belts. Then you have Bubba Ray Dudley and Matt Hardy get pushed off of a 20-foot ladder and go flying through 4 tables on the outside by Rhino. So they get absolutely destroyed. And then Rhino puts Christian on his shoulders and basically walks him up the ladder while Edge restrains Devon Dudley. And Edge and Christian win the tag team championships just like they did in the 2 prior contests. Edge and Christian won every single major encounter between these 3 teams at both WrestleManias and at SummerSlam 2000, as they really kind of were established as the best team out of all these 3. This match went 15 and a half minutes, and just a great, great way for these 3 teams to really basically inscript themselves in the history of professional wrestling. Then you get the gimmick battle royal, where the Iron Sheik won in 3 minutes and 50 seconds, last eliminating Hillbilly Jim. I mean, you just have basically all these old wrestlers of yesteryear come to the ring and have this, I guess, buffoonish type of battle royal. It was what it was. It was fun. It ends with Sergeant Slaughter choking out the Iron Sheik with the Cobra Clutch. It is what it is. You move on and take it for what it was. Then The Undertaker defeats Triple H in 18 and a half minutes. I believe this was the first time The Undertaker wins a match without using the Tombstone Piledriver. He actually defeated Triple H with a last ride. And this is a pretty significant moment. Obviously, it was the sub-main event. And the first time that these two would collide at WrestleMania, ultimately colliding 3 times, and basically kickstarted their storied rivalry. This was the first time that they were ever involved together in a major rivalry, a major program, and as kind of the second to the biggest match of the night, it certainly paid off, and they fought off into the crowd. And it did what it had to do, and obviously both these guys would get major pushes in the following years in the absence of Rock and Austin, which were the 2 guys that they were kind of playing second fiddle to at this point in time. Speaking of which, we get to the main event of Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock for the WWF Championship. And it's obviously a major, major match. It's a match that went almost half an hour. It's a match that clearly is widely regarded as one of the biggest in the history of the company. And it is one that I believe will always go down as probably the best booked and the most hyped main event in the history of the WWF. And the only thing that could be kind of, I guess, put some shade on it was the involvement of Vince McMahon. So obviously we know something is up with Vince McMahon getting involved, taking The Rock off of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And as this match would play out, we realized the sick alliance that had been formed by Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon. Well, I mean, it's certainly a weird way to end what people consider as the best WrestleMania of all time, because it's not often that you close a show with the fans so unhappy and with such a major swerve. But, I mean, I think it kind of puts a bit of a stain on this match because there was such involvement from Vince McMahon, and I don't typically like outside interference in main events at WrestleMania. But at the same time, it made it historic, right? And you will always remember WrestleMania 17 in some form or fashion And, you know, we've heard Stone Cold say that he regrets this, that he wish he would have stunned Vince McMahon. But at the same time, it told a good story. It told the story that they were kind of pushing all the way until this main event. And that was that Stone Cold Steve Austin needed to win that championship more than anything. And it kind of protected The Rock too, because The Rock was a guy that for the better part of a year had been the undisputed top babyface in the company in Stone Cold Steve Austin's absence. And the only way that Steve Austin could beat him guaranteed was by the way of outside interference. So it kind of protected The Rock, and it also told the story that Steve Austin needed to win that title more than anything that possible, more than anything that he could imagine. So, all in all, a very, very good WrestleMania, and one that was certainly filled with a bit of controversy. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed not Stone Cold Steve Austin. I hope you enjoyed WrestleMania 17, main evented by Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. As always, you can get me on Twitter at ADamarco25. You can get Matt on Twitter at wrestling_audio, or you can email him each and every week for the WWE podcast mailbag. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today, and I will talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.